All right, so good evening. My name's Samantha Hudson, Geiger. A lot of people still know me by Samantha Hudson. I was recently married last year, so I'm just kind of getting used to my transition of my name a little bit. You're at Samantha's Intuitive Demonstration tonight, in case you got invited by somebody and you're not sure what you're here for. Tonight you're going to get a big picture understanding of how your consciousness unfolds your reality and the different aspects of the neuroscience of your mind and how that plays into maybe things that you've learned as a kid in your foundational upbringing. And so tonight we're going to bring together maybe your foundation, whether it was religious or maybe it was mystical, maybe you were just a principled person, maybe you're an atheist. Everything I teach tonight plugs into your personal dogma, even if that dogma is atheist. So that's a dogma too, whether you know it or not. And so I want to make sure I don't offend anybody tonight, but at the same time, I want you to know that we can speak your language. However, if I did a show of hands, and I won't make you guys do that tonight, but if I did a show of hands, I'll put this down in a second, a lot of you had a Christian foundation or a Catholic foundation or were forced to go to church or whatever your story is. And so I want to make sure we understand that there's some really great mystical, what was once called mystical, now we can call it quantum, understandings that are biblical without all the literal sense of things. So if I speak in any kind of biblical terms tonight, that isn't to play Jesus Saves Me program tonight or to do any kind of conversion program. I'm going to help some people in here who have that information sitting on the side over here and yet have other information over here. I want to help them bridge it, okay? If that stuff doesn't sound exciting to you, you don't want to talk about the Bible stuff, I want you to hear your language. I want you to tune in for you, just like if I was an interpreter. And so making sure we understand the synonyms tonight. I will grab that again in a moment. I already need water. Are you okay over here? You may not see the blood though. Yeah. You can probably scooch over now. I don't normally write all this on here. This is in case I get too nervous with the cameras. Okay. So a couple things. Synonyms. Tonight, if I say the word God, that might not program for you. That might not be a word that you use. If you are totally against any religious dogma or concepts of dogma, we can say optimum program function, your highest potential, to reach your highest potential. If you are into God or source or quantum field or whatever your language is, we can plug that in. So I want to make sure you understand things are synonyms. And so higher self sometimes is termed as something that's optimum in function. And so tonight I want to make sure you're not losing what I'm sharing with you tonight because you might have a certain belief system. I want you to kind of open up and hear what I had to say about how humans format their consciousness. Do we need to pass that around some more? You want to check? Who hasn't signed in?
The other side.
The other side. Okay, start here. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, all good. I saw you. Okay, so tonight, by understanding our consciousness as ways to program this, we can program through intention, we program through goal writing, we can program through prayer, we program through thinking, we program through fearing, we program through what we see all the time, right? We're a constant state of programming up here. And so when I share with you tonight the way that consciousness programs your reality and how it unfolds your virtual reality experience out here, then you'll start to understand how to wield a better tomorrow or today by understanding what is getting in the way. So there's a lot of you out there, and we'll talk about this a little bit more specifically in a minute, there's a lot of you out there that have been taught to manifest. That means to intention or to goal write. If you worked on a sales team, you've definitely had to meet quotas. You were definitely sitting in a group of people, definitely putting out some feeling to go with those thought forms of what you're supposed to attract to yourself in order to bring in money for that company. Does that make sense? They're using principles of quantum mechanics, principles of law of attraction, if you want to call it that, and so do people when they pray. They're praying for a specific thing, and I still call that manifesting. They're typically wanting or needing or fearing something. Want, need, desire, or fear. There's a lot of people in the world that don't realize that they're constantly crafting their realities through these states of being, which are lower states of being. And these lower states of being, if you constantly keep crafting your world right, I wish, I want, I pray for, I intend, I'm going to be positive thinking all over the place. When you're one of these people that do this all the time, you're missing a lot of information. You're playing the glass is half full. That glass is not half full, it's not half empty. That glass is just plain old half. And a world full of people that have come from being negative thinkers, come on in. There's one more chair. Perfect. And one more water. Go bigger. Can you pass that back to her, do you mind? Perfection. Every chair filled. Okay. So, when you think in a positive, if you're doing that glass is half full, you're still missing half of the picture. You don't understand why sabotage programming keeps coming into your life, why certain sabotage experiences keep happening to you. You think everything's going great and you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. How many of you are living like that? And how many of you are feeling bipolar? One day you feel great, the next day you feel different and you feel rotten, and there was no trigger or stimulus, at least seemingly so, on the surface, to give you a certain experience to feel this way or to feel that way. So if you're in here tonight, I'm here to help you bring it all together, to be holistic, to understand how your consciousness operates, and how if you only... Are you tearing up? Victoria, do I have to get Kleenex already? I didn't even bring Kleenex. Okay. If somebody cries, Angela, you're going to have to go get Kleenex because I forgot it.
Okay.
It happens all the time. I always get a crier. Always happens. Okay. So, if you understand the secrets, like people like to call them the secrets, or the mysticism, or the gnosis of things, I'm here to bring it to logical terms. I'm not the woo-woo lady. I'm not the one that's going to go run around and say, you can manifest this by doing that or this. You can unfold a greater reality through the concept of what understanding is, understanding why the glass is half. Not pretending it's half full, not pretending it's half empty. Why is my glass half? And doing something about that. Okay? And so tonight is about getting real. Not pretending, not living in delusions or living in illusions, but to get real. Not to hide from everybody by being the spiritual person that walks on water all the time, but never ever pertains to their own emotions, to understand what's going on inside of them. So I want to make sure you guys are taking a walk with consciousness that's of integrity, that's coherent between your left and right hemispheres. Your thinking mind and your feeling mind cohere. But the only way to do that, you can't serve two masters. You got to go up a notch. So whether you believe in a higher power, or you call it God, or you call it universal source, if you call it higher self, Allah, goddess, whatever your name for something higher, and if you don't have any name at all, this is what I'm here to teach you. I'm here to teach you that there's a higher function of your consciousness that you have to tap into, or it's just like having a computer at home with no internet. You're only accessing your C drive, and that's all you're getting. And that C drive's probably pretty slack. Would you agree? How many of you like to surf on the internet? Okay, so let me teach you how to surf on a consciousness level, and also to understand the connective quality between all of us and how psychic energy is always transferred. And how to create your own password so you don't pick up everybody else's junk. Anybody in here feeling like they pick up everybody else's feelings in a room? Oh yeah, I got hands already. You guys are, well, I got people that want to put their hands up. I like this. Okay. So I want to make sure you understand how to have detached compassion and yet know how to love your neighbor, but not in lieu of yourself anymore. Because we have a whole population that's living it's better to give than to receive, which is a broken program. To live by it's better to give than to receive. Tell me who's doing receiving? Nobody. And tell me what happens to your bank account if you're always giving money out of it, but you don't know how to receive. How many of you have that issue at home? If you have that issue at home, you're having issues with your own consciousness and your feelings. And so there's a lot of stuff that we can understand. So what I want to start with tonight, and I never know what I'm going to start with. These are different every single time. But I'm going to make sure I hit all those topics there. Don't let me miss one, my regulars. Okay. So consciousness is a formatting function that we all have. We all have a homeostasis programming in here that allows us to be in stability. When you wake up in the morning, you don't realize that you put together that day by what you thought the previous day and the previous day and the previous day. And when you're going through your REM sleep, you're just like a computer trying to open and close programs and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Don't you look like a computer? Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Don't you look like that when you're sleeping at night? And if you're not sleeping well, that means you've got a lot of open-ended programs, which means you have a lot of slowing thought processes in the next day, which means to move something out here, to make something more comfortable out here is nearly impossible because you don't know how to manufacture what needs to happen out here. So there's a lot of people into this concept of manifesting. Now, I'm going to go ahead. I usually ask everybody where they are so I can start teaching from there, but because I'm doing the video tonight, I'm going to make sure I teach certain aspects in case I have a newbie, right? So first thing I want to talk about is law of attraction, or the quantum mechanic principles behind how your thoughts are entangled with whatever you're thinking about and how it has a symbiosis and it causes outcomes, probabilities of outcomes. I need more water. Just a minute. Is it hot, cold in here? How are you guys doing? It's good. The fan worked?
Law of attraction is working.
The what?
Law of attraction is working.
You just keep pushing that out there. All right. So law of attraction is a concept that's been derived by understanding quantum mechanics. And it has a lot to do with, just to make it simplified, you can watch The Secret on Netflix if you want to watch that, or What the Bleep is Going On Here. These are some shows that you can use if you're brand new to these concepts. But thought plus feeling equals the attraction of whatever it is that you're feeling. So think of your feeling as your fuel, and thought as the template of what you're going to bring into light, meaning bring into your reality experience, right? So thought plus feeling is supposed to manifest something. And again, I'm going to use this manifesting. I'm going to help you move out of states of manifesting because I want you to move into a state of unfolding a greater reality than you could have ever imagined, and how to tap that. And so people don't realize you're streaming consciousness code all the time. The world is created with the Word, and the Word is God, meaning your experience. And you're probably having a false God experience instead of an optimum or holy God experience. And the reason being is because you don't know how to ask and receive properly. Ask and receive is just sending code into the computer and knowing how to receive back and understanding what you're reading when you get it back. Does that make sense to you? And so we have to have all our systems aligned. We've got to have our feeling body aligned, our sensory body aligned, our thinking body aligned, right? And once we start to get these things aligned, it makes it very easy to start to read your reality, because this is all biofeedback of what you allow in your consciousness. The things you notice out here, the things that are attracted to you out here, are simply because you've allowed that in your register. There's some things that you need to cease registering. Would you agree? How do we do that? Because it's not a matter of combing over and just being positive and saying that that's not there. If it's there, there's something else you're going to need to do with that. And then we'll be able to understand the inverse property of law of attraction. So law of attraction is when I think and I feel something, I'm going to attract it to me. All of you are doing it, whether you notice you're doing it or not, whether it's on your conscious awareness or not. We are in constant states of programming. Does everybody agree? Okay, so thought plus feeling creates. The inverse property of law of attraction is what I'm here to teach. Not how to go create more shit in your life, not how to create more money or create more relationships or create more kids in your life or whatever it is that you think you're without. Because we're already starting off on the wrong foot if you think you're without. In fact, want, need, desire, and fear is made from states of without. If you were going to talk about that in the biblical sense, we would call that sin. If we're going to talk about that in the context of computer programming, we'd call that syntax error. Same stuff, guys. And so you need to make sure you understand what you're asking for, because whenever you're calling for something out of desire, it's like genie in the bottle. You're never going to think of all the little different attributes. You're going to attract that into your life, and that thing is going to end up owning you instead of you owning it. And it's going to end up, and then you're going to have the fear of losing it, and then you're in a constant state of fear, and then, of course, because that's what you're thinking and then feeling with your feelings, then you lose it, and then you're going through states of, no, why me? Nobody loves me. I'm a victim. And it becomes this big rat hole race to the bottom. We got to get out of this duality sense because it's not working. Does that make sense? So far, so good? Okay. So the inverse property of law of attraction . Oh, we need to talk about that. The inverse property of law of attraction is simply this. Christ used to talk about it. He'd say, love your enemy. That sounds really holier than thou to me, until I understood that love your enemy meant not just to pray for them to be better. That does help. Love your enemy means if you're still attracting something to you that makes you feel all wonky inside, that means there's still something trapped inside of you from a former event that you haven't forgiven yet. And if you haven't forgiven this former event, you can continue to keep attracting this pattern to you time and time again until you can put all the data points together to recognize this as a pattern. Until you recognize the viral pattern so you can disable it from your system, because you're going to call it out by name. Doesn't that sound like an exorcism? Right? Now I'm going to call that demon out by name so it no longer can have effect, right? It has to reveal itself to you. What that means is that we need to reveal your viral patterns to yourself so they can no longer get a footing into your experience, that you have awareness in the present moment, and you stop trying to, most people react to their data, right? Most people are reactive, right? And then there's people who try to create over it. Would you agree there's those types too? So react and create. Same letters, different configurations. React and create. Neither one of those work. It just uploads another pump of that and another pump. It's analog. If you want to get digital, what you got to do, you like the digital, right? If you want to get digital, you have to learn how to understand, which means understand what came before and who did you give it to, because you've been part of a viral pattern for somebody else. So if something can get attracted to you that feels wonky, doesn't feel good, lower emotions, then it means you still have something in your system that's unforgiven that allows it to be attracted to you. And instead of trying to react to the situation or try to create over it, instead of trying to underwrite it or override it, instead we want to understand it. And once we understand it, that is when we can pull it from our systems and transfigure it. But it also had usefulness. That's the other thing people don't understand. Why did all the things happen to you in your childhood and in your teenage years? And why are these patterns still reconfiguring time and time again? Some of you may not even realize you're living in patterns yet, and we're going to have to point them out to you. But if you look really closely at mom and dad, and as much as you try to not be like them, or maybe you just try to be just like them, I don't know, depends on your childhood. But the more you try to be not like them, our consciousness doesn't understand that. Because if you say, I don't want to be like dad, not like dad, I want to meet a man, not like dad, right? Our consciousness doesn't hear anything but dad. So put a K here. Our English language tells us everything about what we're truly saying. We're going to tie ourselves to the outcome of having dad, because it's what you still have unforgiven, and anything you have unforgiven is going to keep revisiting and keep revisiting and keep revisiting through different scenarios, through your bosses, through your new mates. You think you've met a guy or a girl that's just the opposite of everything you've ever wanted, and then as soon as you get married, wham, just like them. Anybody notice that yet? Everybody's noticed that, right? Jonathan's having too much fun over there. Okay. So the inverse property of law of attraction is to understand love is the same. Would you say love and understanding are probably the same thing? Would you say love is understanding? So if it is, loving your enemy means to understand why you drew that enemy to you. And now you can feel blessed for the experience. So when somebody can actually pull up, like this camera phobia I have, right? If somebody can bring up that sensation, or a scenario can bring up that sensation, I must still have insecurity based on how I look, insecurity on how I act in front of other people, right? So I'm grateful for this opportunity. It happens to be, what, a new moon today, or is it a full moon today? Full moon. Full. And by the way, did you guys see the Bethlehem thing, the Bethlehem star thing? Mm-hmm. Yeah, where Jupiter and Venus conjuncting. Those of you that don't know in astrology, it's the first time the star of Bethlehem, and we put star in quotes because it's not really a star, it's two planets conjuncting by our vision in the sky. And it hasn't been seen since 2,000 plus years ago, right? And that just happened yesterday. Isn't that fabulous? Isn't that interesting timing? And here I am overcoming my video phobia. Okay, so
You haven't said the F word yet.
I'm not going to say the F word today. I'm working really hard not to say the F word. Everybody knows I have a potty mouth. I'm just admitting it right now. I'm trying not to put the potty mouth on the internet. Is that okay?
That's you, though.
It is me, and it'll probably slip out. Thanks for the reminder.
You're welcome.
Hi. You need another chair.
There's this one in the corner.
There is one in this corner. You can sit over here. There's even a water for you. Oh my goodness. Okay, now it truly is perfection. All right, there you go. This is my chair. I'll move it over here so you're not bothered with it. And the fan. Thank you. Is that good?
Yes.
Okay. So, where was I? Besides the F word.
Party mouth.
Potty mouth. Okay, where am I before
You were
that?
talking about the star, Venus.
Yes. But we were talking about conjunction. We were just talking about this being a full moon. Things happen in cycles of time even. There's patterns of time. What I want to help you do, and what returning to the Garden of Eden state of consciousness really means, is I want to help you filter out all the sabotage programming that keeps coming into your life. But you can't filter out until you do 3 things. 1, get your voice. Typical counselor stuff. 2, realize you perpetuated the same thing, because judge not lest you be judged. Whatever you judge in the past is still going to upload as urges and temptations in your present. You hear a lot of religions trying to teach you, I need more water. You hear a lot of religions trying to teach you to run away from evil. 2, you hear a lot of counselors say, cognitive behavioral therapy, to try to reformat something. But those don't actually work, because you can paint over it and paint over it and paint over it, but eventually that stuff is going to bleed right through. And so what we have to understand is our consciousness has to be understood, meaning every foul thing that has upset you in your life, everything that you've done to someone else that you feel shame or guilt about, are all functions of how you've been crafted into a unique individual. And your uniqueness, the genius of your personal system, which you think is just maybe random or out of the blue, or maybe a whole bunch of accidents that you've caused, is not true. The things that you endured as a child was to promote and characterize you into a unique design that only you could have. And you don't get to understand that blessing in disguise or the genius within the reality of how you were crafted until you decide to go back and look at it full on. To face those demons, to face that stuff in your life, and to understand that you got to get a voice about it as an inner child. Recognize you're repeating the same mistakes even if you think you aren't. You probably went opposite of some of your forebears. You were a creator instead of a reactor. And you probably created opposite situations that still ended up in the same place. Like, for instance, an abusive father might make someone like myself become an overly permissive mother. And then me, as an overly permissive mother, would create a child that was going to be unruly to others and become just like my father. That's a skip generation pattern. And until you get 3 generations and you can map this stuff, you won't be able to understand what it is that makes you go, or makes you fall, or makes you suppressed by these viral patterns. But we're not to just understand that they've suppressed you today. The third part of your understanding is to recognize they're also what crafted you. And there's blessings in disguise to be understood. And this is how we become fully revealed. To where there's no shame, no guilt, no, I have to hide this or I've got to avoid this. The day that you can become fully revealed in exercise is the day that no one can have anything on you. Is the day that nobody can come into your world and screw it up with sabotage. The day that you can say whatever you need to say authentically wherever you go and stop dancing around or walking on eggshells all the time or pretending you're not good enough to speak up. That's what I want for each and every one of you. I want your self-esteem not only to be good, but to honor others in unison with yourself, but to never give to someone else in lieu of yourself ever again. Okay? When we give in lieu of ourselves, we eventually diminish ourselves, and then guess what? We're not good for anybody. The other thing to think of, if we overly give to others, time and time again, this is why women generally have breast cancer and why men generally will have the prostate cancer, is because they'll give and give and give. Women will give and give and give because they think that's their position in life, that's what they're supposed to do. We have a whole generation, no offense millennials, but we have a whole generation of kids that sometimes don't know how to get for themselves. Would you agree? And why is that? Because everybody's doing the getting for them. They're not stupid. They're going to stick around with the people they're going to constantly give, but they've gotten addicted to that giving. And you've become an addiction for your children or for your husbands or for your wives when you bend over too much and do what they want to do. Happy wife, happy life is a death syndrome too. It's a death sentence. So making sure that you understand with your partners, you want to never give in lieu of yourself, to remain authentic. Relationship is not about compromise. That's another big fat lie out there. So making sure you recognize that there's a lot of big fat lies out there that are generally accepted to be a good person. And that's why everybody's sitting on the heel and nobody feels as good about themselves as they think their deeds are. Do you agree with that? Okay. So let's have some fun. Returning to the Garden of Eden state of consciousness. Heaven on earth. What would that be like to not have experiences that come and get in the way of your experiences? What would that be like? It'd be pretty great. Do you think there would be disease? No purpose in disease anymore. In case you don't understand, disease is your body alarm sounding off that something's wrong with your thinking. And people like myself who know chakras, or Jonathan, or who else are helpers in here? Angela, Allie. If I'm missing you, I apologize because I'm got a lot of people in here. Heather, when you guys are sitting on something inside of yourself, when one of your chakras, if you don't know what chakras are those energy wheels of light that spin, but really they map to your amygdala function, which we're going to talk about later. Everything that's caught inside the amygdala function, which is where PTSD occurs, you guys have heard that, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. Everything that's caught within this framework inside of us not only is allowed to come out in cycles of time and come back into our lives with various new patterns, different characters, same scenarios, but it also leaves residue in our chakras, and that residue can be read by a lot of people. We know how to read them, or we know how to pick up certain things. But we're not just cleaning chakras when we go to a helper. We're not just going to go get cancer cut out of us. If you have cancer, don't just go get it cut out. Go ask someone to help you understand, why did it arrive in your system in the first place? Because that cancer is your friend trying to let you know and sound the alarm that you're not thinking in your right mind, which we're going to talk about in a second. And when you're not thinking in your right mind, that's what allows certain cells to mutate, or diseases to be attracted, or injuries to be attracted to you in certain regions, because it's supposed to be all-telling. For those of you that are not having it happen in the physical system, it's probably happening to your car. Right? And sorry, somebody just told me a story tonight. It's probably happening to your vehicle. So it doesn't have to happen to your system. It can happen to your vehicle, and it's still telling you the same thing if your system was telling you. And so if something happens in your house, you have a leaky faucet, and it means you've got an energy leak in your system too. And so we don't realize that your environment is constantly talking to you. It never stops talking to you. It's always trying to let you know where you can get things going. That's what they call, like Christians will call it the still small voice, or intuitions for people in the new agey type of world, right? Gut feelings for people in business, right? You have to learn how to read your system and know how to do it coherently. So that's something else I want to make sure we talk about tonight. How do I create a relationship and a database of information here that can be moved by in my environment to elicit a certain thought form at a certain time, so that I might appear psychic, or might appear intuitive, but really I just know how to use my system properly. All of you have this functionality. Can everybody in here write? You were all taught to write. Some of you might be better writers than others, but can all of you write? You can all do this too. Okay.